user. For gender pronouns, I have no preference, and for POIs, please do the POIs through the text chat. All right. So for my speech, I will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about the current situation that is happening in Thailand, we realize that what is currently happening is that basically the society, the citizens of Thailand are very much going. They are very much going on a very big effort in trying to push the government to create a reformation. Right, mostly that we can see currently, the reformation that they're expecting is the changing of the political, the economical, and the society and the social system that is happening. Right, they are expecting a shift from the monarch system towards a democratic system. So what has been currently happening what has already happened now in the status quo, that we realize that basically this movement, that the movement from the protester that has been going on in Thailand has actually been going for a pretty long time, right, ladies and gentlemen. We realize that first of all that it began from a little mass, which is the students, and now it's currently a bigger mass that, as we can see, that currently is happening. Right, there's a big large scale of protest happening within Thailand. But the problem with the current status quo right now is that basically the government have yet to hear and directly respond towards the demands of the society that are basically protesting towards the government. Right, you realize that basically the protesters have already done what you would say as a peaceful method, right, like their protests where they are using the hand sign, but there is still no clear response given from the government that they want to directly go into terms with the society, that they want to at least maybe open discussions towards the protesters. Right, thus we believe that the current actions given by the protesters is not working at all. And what we want here in opening government, that is, we want to escalate the action done by the protesters. We want these protesters to eventually go to the point of becoming violent in order to actually force the government so that they would want to morally hear the society. Why? So that we could ensure that the government would actually directly go into contact and into terms with the society. So now jumping to my arguments here, I'm going to explain to you basically on the urgencies. Why is it that we must escalate the actions towards the violent actions? So firstly here, I'm going to to justify the urgency, I'm going to explain to you basically why is it that protesting in the form of violent actions is the only way. So firstly, ladies and gentlemen, we realize that, let's contextualize that what is happening now, that basically the past efforts are not working, right? The normal voicing out and the peaceful and what you would consider as a more modern and peaceful approach, modern and peaceful approach currently is not very much working, right? Notice that the government basically have not been listening, have not been hearing towards the demands of the society. Thus, for example, like either they directly call out towards the government within the road, or they give the hand signs, or like you would see, right, the hands that they're lifted up 3 fingers. It very much did not give any clear benefit for them. And actually what you see the results currently is basically the government is actually trying to oppress the society, right? Especially currently within the condition where it's in the pandemic of COVID-19, they actually try to make the protesters to actually stop their protesting because of the alibi that's saying that they might get infected and they might die, right? Basically what you can see is currently the government is trying to actually avoid these protesters. They're kindly trying to run away with them. Thus, because of that, we believe that the violent action is currently justified as a last resort for these protesters to take. And currently it is the time now, because of their previous actions has given no results to themselves. Now, secondly, I'm going to explain why is it that basically only the violent actions will work. So firstly, ladies and gentlemen, let's characterize basically when we're talking about the system in Thailand now, whereas monarch, obviously when we talk about a monarchy, obviously it's very clear, like that there is a clear power gap between the government and the society. It is very much obvious that the government has a very higher position in compared to what the society let it be from their power, right? So most likely they will not actually hear or listen towards the society unless the society can actually show that they can actually prove that they are actually being what you would say being a threat, or they could jeopardize the government, right? Thus we believe that at this point that is the main justification. Why is it that the protesters actually elevate towards a violent action, so that they are going to be more likely recognized by the government by being considered as a threat. And we believe that is very much okay, ladies and gentlemen. So basically here, when we're talking, so basically based on that, we believe that this is going to be the only way that will work. And when we're talking about the violent actions here, we can actually make an example here. For example, that what you would expect is basically the protesters are eventually going to, for example, one of the extreme violent actions would be the wrecking of the local facilities, or even there's going to be an even far more extreme call out, for example, like directly giving hate speech towards the government. That is the type of violent action that is very much most likely going to happen, and that is what we believe would actually make the society be more, the protesters be more, what you say, recognized and noticed by the government, and they are going to directly show that they are actually being a threat towards the government. And the reason why they decided to be like that is because of their demands never being heard by the government. Now why is it most likely going to happen that finally the government is going to listen towards these people? Well, basically there most likely two likely processes that is going to happen. Firstly, the government is eventually going to realize, right? They're going to finally recognize that the society is finally a threat. Hence, they decided to actually bring a direct harm that is going to be in the consideration of a government, like the destroying of the facilities, right? Obviously, the government is going to notice this, that there is a harm existing within the society, and the government is going to realize that basically they no more have control over the society. They could not stop them, they could not oppress them from doing these actions. Thus they are eventually going to realize and going to be forced into the only ways for these people, protesters, to stop such actions, is that if they want to come into terms with the protesters, right, is that if they want to finally consider to listen towards the demand, they would at least want to try maybe open discussions and other sorts. And also, secondly, what is going to happen here is that also the government, besides realizing that basically society is becoming a threat, there's going to realize that already exists a very much big distrust within the society in a very large scale occurring. Why? Because basically this action is going to happen in a large mass. Thus obviously the government is going to realize the existence of that distrust. Based on that, we finally believe the conclusion that basically these violent actions is the only way and is the most effective currently within the status quo, proudly to propose.
Okay, I thank the Prime Minister for that speech, and I welcome the Leader of Opposition to open the case of opposition.
Can we have a minute? My teammate has gone to the bathroom.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, could you just tell me the names of LO first? LO and
LO is Tari. The LO is Marco.
Okay, thanks.
Am I audible?
Yep, you're audible.
Okay. My preference is troop checks. Okay. Oh. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, before we go further to what before we go further to my substantive, I would like to give some responses towards open government cases. First of all, they talk about that this it is hard that the past actions is not working. And also they will directly going fight through this violent protest. But we say to you, the way they want to be here by the government itself is not through these violent actions, because we do believe we consider that it is hard to change this past actions itself. Because what we want to change is one the reformations of the system itself, from the monarchy to the democracy itself. So what we do need is we want to be heard by the government itself. So what we think on the government side of the house will hard to be heard, because they first of all they will be seen as a irrational society that just do riot without any concerns, like what we can see in Indonesia or in the US itself. And the moment in Indonesia when the society protests about RUU Cipta Kerja itself, they already do many kind of riots. They do violent protests. They burn the office. Meanwhile, the president itself just directly signed the bill without any considerations from the society that already do that riots itself. So we do believe we as the society in Thailand itself, we want doing clever strategy itself, because it means that by doing non-violent action, it means we already have considered that we want this is well prepared and well considered. So we will get better here and get better support from the other party. And second of all, they talk about if we want to be heard by the government, unless the society should show the jeopardize the government itself. We do believe that opening government itself not understand what the case is, because we do believe what government's fault is here is they disregard the human rights itself. They do restrictions of freedom expressions through the bill that already made by the prime minister itself. So we do believe that is the kind of things is enough to show the demand of the protester itself through what the sign language that already done by the students, that already done by the protester itself. And I will prove in my substantive two things. First of all, why it is principally justified to do non-violence protest, and second of all, what is the practical benefit if protest done peacefully. In the principal argumentations, we do believe the reasons the Thailand's people's natures is they respectful the monarchy itself. They are different with any other constituents. Like in Indonesia, when there is a case of the bill, the problematic bill, they likely to do violence. They likely to burn the office of the incumbent governments, like how in America when they protest about Trump's that declare about homophobic ideas, they directly being brutal, and like how in Hong Kong can see that. And because of that respectful, they also respect the law and rules that already Biden for years in the Thailand itself. They already have that anti monarchy law itself, because they do believe that monarchy, the people who sit in the monarchy is they are the God descendants. They should be well respected. So the reason why it is justified for them to not do violence, because first of all, they want to show that they don't backlash the ideology of them as a Thailand's society itself, because the ideology of the nature of Thailand society is they respect the monarchy. It means they respect their leader itself. So, and they respect their system. And the second of all, it means they want to ruin the sense of intimidation itself. So, what is the demand of the protester itself? There are three demands. First of all, the dissolutions of the parliament itself. Second of all, ending the intimidations of the people, and third of all, drafting the new constitutions itself. And we
Before
believe,
moving on,
no, thank you. And we believe, who is protester itself is the student itself. They don't have a specific leader or a leader from any political party that can. Is that they are still vulnerable itself. They are their parents might be angry when they go through protest, because they already have a student. They are already educated enough, because they already know what is the wrong and what is the bad side of this incumbent government. So that's why they do critiques about this kind of governments. So we do believe the three demand itself. The important claim is the intimidations that already access that done by the government itself. So why we do believe that this protest can be successful? By the media portrayal, by the in the headline news itself, we do believe they see how students do the sign language as a peacefully protest actions, and it means they want to prove. First, they want to they already concede that it's hard to change the government, so they want to make a clever strategy to make governments accept them. And second of all, they want to get a support from international body itself, like how is the case then they disregard the human rights and how the UN directly giving awareness towards the prime minister itself. And what is the profit that you will get under our side of the house? First of all, we do believe that there will be a large number of supporters are funding. Like we can see how the actress itself giving fundings, and the K-pop fandoms that already support this protester, and it will explain further on my second speaker. Thank you.
Okay, I thank the Leader of Opposition for that speech, and I welcome the Deputy Prime Minister.
Good.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Oh, no.
Yep, you're audible.
Hello?
Yep, you're audible. If you could mute, please, because there's background noise.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, hello? Am I audible, right?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, first of all, my name is Raihan, and I would like to be pronounced as he. And if you wanted to give a POI, you can turn on your mic and just say POI, okay? Okay, I'll start my debate in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we both of the house have the common ground that we both wanted the government to listen to what the people wanted. We want the government to listen to the voice of what the society wanted. But we have a disagreement in how the opposition inside the house wanted to reach this agreement. First of all, I want to rebut about a thing that the opening opposition had said before. First of all, they're saying that that this kind of action, this kind of elevated violence action is irrational action. Yes, we agree. It is an irrational action only if this is the first way that the society did when they heard about this problem before. But in fact, in its current status quo, we know that this kind of things, this kind of protest, this kind of distrust has already been instilled in the heart of the society itself and accumulated throughout the decades. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a couple of things that why does the society wanted to have this reformation. First of all, because there is a long-term effect, there's a long-term cost why this happened, and there's a short-term cost. First of all, there have been a lot of inequality in law and discrimination against LGBTQ in the country itself. Second of all, there are many human rights violations throughout Thailand for decades. And the newest kind of case that really triggered the young students because to have this riot is that because first of all there are rigged election, and second of all there is a dismissal of a progressive political party that support the young generation. And third of all is that because there is a new reformation of law considering that protecting the royal family name. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to get into my arguments, and I want to tell you why does by having this escalated kinds of riots or this escalated riot is more beneficial than harm. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we do agree that this kind of violence, escalated to violence, may cause many breakdown in the society. It may cause broken facility or something like that, and it can affect the monetary or economic status of the country. But we see this we see this as justified. Why? Because first of all, but like what I said before, there are already a couple of things that has been happening inside Thailand itself, and it's not only happens just yesterday. It's already accumulated over decades. So by having this escalated into violence, it is by have. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Oh, I thought that the one through chat say here.
Oh, sorry. No, I paused your
Okay.
chat. You're at 316. You can continue.
Oh, okay. I want to continue now. So, ladies and gentlemen, why we said that it is justified, it has more benefits than harm is that because, like my first speaker had told you before, that it is not the very first time that the society of Thailand wanted to have a change. They already fight for their chance. They are not using violence at first. They're using a softer way, like for example, oration or something like that. But as you can see from the motion of the debate itself, we want to discuss, should we escalate it? Should we escalate it in the future? And based on that motion, we can conclude that even before we wanted to escalate that this kind of riot, it's not violent itself, non-violent way, but the government hasn't heard about it. So we want the government to heard about it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is far more beneficial because first of all, even though that this kind of action may damage the country, at least that the government itself, they know that the society wanted change, and at least even if there are no instant reformation don't happen, at least there will be progress. At least there will be a government that understand the situation here. At least they know, at least the other society know that there are problems inside our country, and we needed to change it right now as soon as possible, or else we will live inside confinement from the monarchy. We're not only talking about the monarchy itself, but all of the system but many things in the system of Thailand, it's already broken. So that's why we wanted a reformation. Okay, perhaps the opposition side have said before that from why does this kind of action just happen if before this that many people already respected their monarchy system. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, there are a couple of things that can cause an acceptance throughout the society. First of all, that's because they don't know what's wrong in the society itself. Second of all, they don't. First of all, they don't experience the direct effect of the problem itself, and second of all is that because they don't know, they less likely to know about things that is happening surround them. They mainly care about things that revolve around themselves. And that's why we suggest that this kind of action is not entirely be the justification of why we should not have this riot. And the reason why we also support that, the reason why that why is it also justified that it is the young student, the young generation to have this revolt, to have this riot, is that because they are educated, they know what's wrong in this country, and they know they already have the concept of how they will fix this country. They understand what's wrong, they understand and how to change it, and they wanted to change it. And that's why we should not discredit them for what they wanted to do to change their own country. Okay, I think that's all from me, and by this we proudly propose our proposition. Thank you.
Okay, I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech, and I welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition to present their remarks.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, the problem is buying into opening government's ideas was made harder by the second speaker because of two main things, right? Firstly, they came up and said that even if there's no instant reformation, which is basically one of the biggest contentions coming from their side of the house, that could probably buy into the idea that it's good, because if there's no instant reformation, then we think that doing your peaceful solution right now is still the best thing, because at the end of the day, if you don't know if there'll be any outcomes or not, we think it's better when you don't ruin public property. We think that it's better when you don't have any collisions with the police, right? Because when they say that they want government to know that the problems exist, they want to know that government knows that this threats exist, we think that government already knows that it exists, right? Because the ideology that was characterized to you by my first speaker, and this is why it's important, is the principle that Thailand people were very respectful of their monarchy. That is why when they go to the streets, it is something that is very, very problematic, because these individuals are people that love their monarchy, because they look up to their monarchy like gods. This is why our characterization of principle is important and was dismissed fully by opening government, right? But then the second thing that they come up here and say is that these students are good to make demonstrations because they know what's wrong and they know the concept how to fix their country. Again, I must clearly tell you, we're not against demonstrations. We're against them being done in violent manners, right? Because then when OG come up here and the second speaker says these kinds of instant reformation might not happen at the end of the day, we think it's fine with status quo, because you cannot judge something will not have outcomes at the end of the day because they simply have not happened yet. Black Lives Matter riots, for example, no policy has really happened. No police institution disorganization has actually happened, right? But people know about the problem. We think that we should wait for that to come up in the future. No, thank you. Look at what's happening in Indonesia, right? This is even a worse case in the contextualization, where Jokowi is actually signed and this clear kind of violent actions has actually happened, right? Which is why, at the end of the day, even if you want to pursue these kinds of violent actions, we think they will come to no benefit, because you're just basically predicting the future that a better outcome will come up, because we've shown you clear contextualizations where violence has happened and nothing has happened yet, which means you cannot basically come to the agreement that this thing has not had any results, because nothing simply has happened yet, because we think that awareness is there, government knows that distrust is there, media is highlighting these kinds of Thailand protests, and people already know what is happening, and Thailand government and monarchy is under the scrutiny of international organizations, right? We think that that is enough. Then further on, why then is the argumentation from Tari important? Two things. One, it doesn't backlash the ideologies that the Thailand people have, which means that at the end of the day, they can still stay truthful to the things that they believe in, which is respecting their monarchy. Then secondly, we think that on the basis that Tari said that these students the parents might get angry, there's a bigger picture to this, where, when students are rioting and protesting in peaceful ways, we think that it encourages a lot of elders to most likely join the demonstration. Why? Because elders will not join demonstrations that will only lead violent outcomes, because elders do not want to be hurt. Elders do not want to have clashes with the police later. This is why we think, on that basis of the practicality, where students are the one leading the nation and people will most likely pick up on this, is because it's peaceful protest. It's seen as something new. The elders see that no harm will come to them. That is why they will most likely join into these kinds of demonstrations, right? Which is why at the end of the day, we mitigate and nullify the ideas of the benefits coming from opening government and say that they already exist in status quo. But then furthermore, we agree and concede that on our side of the house, nothing might happen yet, but we say that it's still a working process. It's still something that is very new. We say that, for example, take the example of Somalia, that is a new democracy given birth by the Arab Spring. Nothing really has gotten better there yet. We say it's a working process, and because things are still in working process, we don't think that you have the right to say that it has failed yet, because you still need to see nearer into the future, right? For example, if tomorrow suddenly the Thai reformation happens, then OG's arguments in real life would be nullified, right? But we're not going to go that far, and we're going to say that you cannot take the basis of arguments that things have failed when it's something that's still a working process. Before I continue, closing.
What is the thing that you say how this government will actually more likely to hear? Because the moment that you you don't do violence, that's the moment where the government will oppress you even more and killing your people. Because in the current status quo, the police to begin with is already killing the protester and causing harm to them. What do you say towards that?
Yep, we think that basically when that's happened, at least this can be used as news media outlets to weaponize against the government, saying that the government is oppressive, right? When these kinds of individuals try to engage and fight back, we think that, the narrative will be that these policemen are brutal because these protesters are brutal. This was what happened in the United States. This is what happened in Indonesia. We want the Thais to stay with their peaceful protest, so it cannot be weaponized against them, right? But then 3 extensions that I will bring. Firstly, the idea of what kind of parties were mentioned, what better support from parties will actually happen. 2 things were brought by Thari. One, the idea that, there'll be journalistic international news that use this, but then secondly, there's additional funding from actresses and K-pop stars, for example. We think that the funding will stop when these actions go violent. Why? Because these kinds of K-pop stars and actors and actresses do not want to be seen funding things that are actually violent, right? They want to be seen funding things that are altruistic so that it can boost their media reputation. This is why only on our side they will keep funding. But no matter the cause, once you go violent, they don't want to be seen as people who are funding violence, right? But then what I said, which is very important to my response of the POI as well, is the journalistic international news that covers these kinds of things. We think that news really likes to highlight things that are mostly hot news and will make readers want to read it. This looks like them making one-liners in headlines, for example, so people can read it. What is the headline news that they can mostly make with the situation right now? Police are very, very oppressive to the Thailand peaceful protesters, right? For example, let's take the best case in their side where the police are killing off these people. This then will make people read it and see that, oh, this Thailand government is evil, for example, and it leads to further scrutinization. In our side of the house, we tell you the world that will happen when they become violent, this cannot be weaponized anymore, because the news will mostly be like, Thailand protesters that are aggressive clash with policemen that are trying to defend themselves, propaganda, people will read it, that's the end to that. Then secondly, the extension of why elders will join at the end of the day, I've clearly explained this in my rebuttal, but then further, they have the interest to actually speak up for their nation, they don't know when they can actually jump in, right? The only place where they can jump in is when it can bring to their welfare and well-being and not result in negative impact to them. But thirdly, at the end of the day, the extension is that both sides cannot clearly tell you if this will succeed or not. No one here can read the minds of the monarchy, right? So that's why we have to go on the basis of assumption that it might work or might not. In our worst case of the house, if it doesn't work at the end of the day, we think that 2 things. It's still fine because at least now international organization can scrutinize these Thailand people. Then secondly, we think that at least at the end of the day, the Thailand people will be seen as peaceful, and it's a big change. Very proud to oppose.
Okay, I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech, and I welcome the Member of Government to open the closing debate.
Give me like 15 seconds to just review my writing.
Sure.
I'm gonna start the speech. Oh, wait. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2. Oh, by the way, my name is Tajak and my whip will be HL. If you guys have any POI, just unmute yourself and ask a points. I prefer he and him. And I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Towards the opening opposition, I have only one clarification or slash a response, right? We think that this debate should be judged based on the outcome that we created. So we're not going to debating on how many people will join us, but rather how significant is the outcome that we created, violent versus peaceful protest, in terms of influencing the behavior of the government or the monarch, right? The winner of the debate is determined by which side can prove to you that they can influence the monarch better in terms of creating a better reformations of the monarch system, or if they don't want to reform their monarchs, we're going to for democracy, right? The opening opposition argue that firstly, they will more likely to get a better media highlight because media will not highlight us if we act violent and cause a lot of distractions. And actually, um, what we say that firstly about the media, right? When we're talking about media always want to highlight things that always attract the world, right? Especially the West media. Under the opening opposition, there was a very lack characterization in terms of media. Within there are two types of media: West media and more authoritarian media like Al Jazeera or like the Chinese media, for example. We think that in the case of Chinese media or like Al Jazeera media, maybe they will not highlight us because they will view us as violent, right? But as people who want democracy and fight for democracy, what we want is not the attention of Chinese media or authoritarian media who don't care about our rights that are being violated, but rather we want attention for CNN or BBC or a pro-democracy media that comes from the US and also the European Union's media, right? That's our aim, to get their highlights. And they will only highlight us if they see us being attacked or being killed and being jailed. Because no matter what, American media and Western media will always pro for democracy because it will make them easier to invest in stuff that I'm going to talk later in my argument, right? The aim of the closing government is actually for the monarch reform, right? To create a better check and balance. We don't want the prime minister to be ex-military or from military bases, but instead we want the prime minister to be from pure civilians. We want also the government to open to critics and also to create a better distribution of wealth because there is something very significant in the current status quo. Secondly, in the current status quo, yes, we do peaceful through singing, through satire and equipping the government. But we are still being attacked with water cannon by military and also the group. Even though we are just standing on the streets singing together, we are still being attacked. Their burden is to prove to you then why it is okay for us to do it peacefully, even though we are being attacked and being jailed just because we are singing on the streets, right? First, coming to my first argument on how the likelihood for us to success, plus on how we are going to be protected because we are protesters, which barely going to backlash with the idea of them that we are going to be killed or we're going to be jailed, and basically the worst case that maybe they're going to argue on the closing opposition, right? China is different with China and Syria in terms of the international watch. It is easier for UNHCR and also international journalists to come to Thailand because they are more open to the exposure of these organizations and also these actors, right? Thailand is also different with Indonesia and USA. So you cannot compare the demonstration of RUU PKS and also Black Lives Matter because simply the monarchs and also the US government rely on different things regarding the economic resources, right? The monarch relies so much on tourism and also the international community to cooperate with them in the side of economy, right? Compared to Indo and USA, they don't really care with the international pressure because international is the one that relies to USA and Indonesia. Compared to Thailand, we think that Thailand is the one that relies to the international community in terms of tourism and also international cooperation in economy, right? yes, Thailand is more authoritarian than Malaysia, but it is more different. But it is more dependent than compared to Indonesia and USA to international community, right? Because the government income and also the monarch incomes rely on tourism. That's the reason why they're gonna be more afraid if the tagar or the hashtag of boycott Thailand is gonna rising, right? They also rely on international trade and also cooperation with USA and also European countries, right? By going violent, we're going to attract the international society attention because they're gonna see on how we are gonna be being attacked and being very violent compared to the Indonesian status quo. It is not very attractive, right? The government of Thailand and also the monarch are gonna be afraid because the hashtag of boycott Brunei or boycott Thailand is gonna be rising, just like the boycott Brunei when they abuse the right of the community, which hampers the assets of these kings outside of the world in the Europe and also USA, right? The international society will urge the government also to pressure the monarch to listen. If not, they will start to boycott the monarch's asset and also the income of Thailand, right? In the Western countries, in the international trade in the current status quo, there is a rise of due to the trade or the US companies are start to moving their companies from China to Southeast Asian countries. This is actually a very good opportunity for Thailand and any other Asian countries to actually start trading with the Western countries, right? But due to this protester, due to the fact that they are violating human rights, we think that the likelihood for them to have the cooperation will be low. And because of this, they will start to listen to us. And actually, the possibility of reform is going to be so much higher because they're going to be afraid that they're going to lose the international trade possibility. That's actually going to be significant to the outcome, right? We also have the underground journalists, both local and international, right? Thailand is different with China or Russia or Syria, right? Because Thailand is just less capital, so they don't have the ability to surveillance all of the people that were underground. So the possibility for international journalists to report if someone is being killed or being jailed is still going to be there. So we're still going to be protected by UNHCR and other democratic countries that actually want to protect us. Secondly, why it is okay for us to be violent, right? The opening government only explained to you on how we're going to be killed, but I'm going to explain the 5 contexts in the current status quo why the monarch is actually become too abusive and also don't care about the society. First, they are capitalizing the many resources of that used to owned by the government and the society to the only king. So this king own the 40 billion worth assets that actually should be used for the society, right? So even though the Catholic school, there's a really massive gap that even 20 to 30% of the society are being gone into poverty, but due to this massive capitalization, people are going to be unable to go out from the poverty. Second, there is a rise of power military when our prime minister is actually come from the military aspect and stuff. And since we are simply because we are being jailed, being dead, being starved to death, it is justified for us to at least ask for basic human rights, for the equality of income and the distribution of wealth. They are also banning the telegram that actually can be used for us to communicate each other. Due to that reasons, it is justified for us to actually ask for our basic human rights, and also we are going to be protected because Thailand is very dependent to international community compared to the vice versa, right? So we think that we are going to be more effective in terms of urging them to listen more to us.
Thank the member of government for that speech, and I welcome the member of opposition to present their remarks.
Test, am I audible?
Yep, you're audible.
Okay, my name is Hans. I will be the member of opposition. If there's any POI, you can just unmute your mic and directly interrupt me in the middle of my speech. Nice. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Here is how closing opposition will enter this debate. We are going to discuss about, we say that this is a debate about escalations of violence. We admit that currently there is small amount of violence currently happening in the mass demonstration happening in Thailand, but we say this is not the time for the demonstrants in Thailand to escalate the spectrums of violence that is currently happening in their country. If closing government say that this is a debate about outcome, there is exactly what will be proven in closing opposition why not escalating the current action to become more violent will create a better outcome, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let's engage to the government side of the house. Opening government, we're talking about that it is okay to escalate to violence because currently there's no response from the government of Thailand toward the protesters. We say it will be even worse if you are currently escalating your violence. Why? Because the moment you escalate to your violence, there will be definitely more clash with the police officer, more clash with the military backup of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-ocha, ladies and gentlemen, and these demonstrants will lose. Why? Because this military and this police, they have gun. They are able to utilize their weapon. They are able to utilize their military fleet against the demonstrants, ladies and gentlemen. But it is even worse in their side. Why? Because in their side, the moment these demonstrantes also become violent, there are some group of people that will be unsympathetic to them. We are talking about people that is believe in anti-violence, for example. We are talking about people in gray area, for example, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe this is proven. Why, for example, there are criticisms in Black Lives Matter or protests in France because there is no violence done by the demonstrants. We believe that it will be even worse in their side. Our side, even if no later, in our side, even if there is casualties, we believe that at least there will be media that could that could use it as a weapon to gain sympathy from the people for us. Secondly, international society to boycott the monarchs when there is a we say one to gain international attention, but secondly, we don't think that's how international society works. Because currently, even if there is massive demonstration in Indonesia, China, for example, is still investing in Indonesia. Even if, for example, there is a massive human rights violations happening in Saudi Arabia, US is still have an international relation with Saudi Arabia. So we believe that that's not how the international community work. Here is the case of closing oppositions. We say that currently there are groups in Thailand living in Bangkok and several areas that still supports the monarchy. Secondly, we say that Prayut Chan-ocha, the current prime minister with military backup, is a royalist towards King Rama X, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that violence in the direct action that they will apply, whether they would like to occupy, for example, the governmental offices, or whether they would like to directly attack the military or police bases, or for example, they would like to burn the state administrative office, for example, ladies and gentlemen. We say we are currently currently it is not strategic for us to escalate our violence into that spectrum, ladies and gentlemen. We say our stance as oppositions, we would like to not escalate the action to become more violence, but we would like to prolong the period of the demonstrations to also attract more protesters to join us. We will create a sustainable demonstration, so we will create a condition where the demonstrant will be able to endure the demonstration. We will also involve more, for example, NGO or pro-democratic civil organizations. We agree that violence is a last resort and justified in action, ladies and gentlemen. But in the current context of Thailand mass demonstrations, we believe that there should be a strategy used by these demonstrators. We say that escalation of violence should not be the current goal of demonstrators in Thailand, because violence is currently not a strategic mechanism to be done. Before proceeding, yes, closing.
I'm going to ask to you regarding the whole arguments about human rights violation. Don't you think that the moment that these people that has been protesting peacefully move to a more violent, that's when things go wrong, and thus the media will put more attention towards it, thus gaining more viewer? What is the response of you towards it?
More, even if media are putting more coverage towards the demonstration, ladies and gentlemen, but what will media portray? Media could portray that there is also violence coming from the protesters, but secondly, there is a media that will portray that, currently protesters have turned to become more violent, ladies and gentlemen. So it will not be effective media coverage happening in your side. Now, moving on, why we believe that prolonging the period of demonstrations is important? Because under our side, it will show the government of Thailand and the international society and the media that this is not a mere seasonal protest. It is also important to add the number of protesters, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about people in gray area. The moment you are becoming more violent, these people will be reluctant to join your action, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, currently, King Rama X has made a television appearance saying that he still loves the demonstrants. The moment these demonstrators turns into violence, what will happen is that there is a possibility that he will shift towards hating the demonstrants. Secondly, let's look at the characteristics. Prayut Chan-ocha and his military backup cabinet currently is the royalist of King Rama X. There will be justification coming from the supporters of King Rama and also Prayut to fight back and also conduct more violence towards the demonstrants, and we say the demonstrants will definitely lose. At least in comparison in our side, ladies and gentlemen, there will be political process exist. There will be more incentive for the government and also the monarch of Thailand to listen towards the voice of these demonstrators. Why? Because in our side, besides prolonging the time period of the demonstrations, we will also involve many segments of society. Comparing in their side, it will create more victims and casualties. There will be no international support or backup, ladies and gentlemen. Because let's look, even if there is even if they are, for example, hoping for international backup, we say these international NGO, for example, or backup, they are liberal organizations with massive respect of human rights. The moment you turn to violence, they will think that, oh, there are also violations of human rights in the side of the demonstrations. We believe that it will not be effective. That is why, for example, these NGOs or these society are reluctant to, for example, supporting Hamas in Palestine because Hamas is also doing violence, right? So we believe that in their side, even if they are hoping for international backup and support, it will not happen. And easily, we have to report to you on how they will directly lose the war against the military and police.
Okay, thank the member of government, member of opposition, sorry for that speech, and I welcome the government whip to close the case of government. Government whip. Oh, wait. Okay, sure.
Cek. Audible gak?
You're audible, yes.
Okay. Reminder again, if you guys want to POI, just directly unmute yourself, or yeah, just directly do that. Okay. I'm going to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. It seems like the whole opposition bench has trying to put their safety first over the progress of their activity. They said that the progress have already existed in the first place, but they forget how the monarch system is actually so crucial and so evil in violating human dignity in Thailand. We believe that under those circumstances, the change that will happen under their case will not be happen. In my speech, I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to have rebuttals regarding the opposition argument. Secondly, I'm going to talk about clashes in between the whole on point of justification. And thirdly, I want to talk to you about how this under government side will create much more benefit and much more support from international eyes and from within the countries itself. Most of the argument I will bring is going to be focused on the comparative. Let's move on in the first place. I'm going to talk about the first point that never been answered in the opening bench regarding how this will backlash the ideology. That notice that this has been brought by the OO, but OG never respond to it. We say that regarding the backlashing of ideologies is that first, the peacefulness of Thailand. If the peacefulness of Thailand is not going to be because we said that monarch has been violating our rights in the first place. We said that the peaceful violence that will be seen, we say that when the moment of peaceful violence turns violent, this will be creating a bad narrative in the world, saying that, oh, something is happening in the eyes of the Thailand people, and meaning that the discourse on people talking about what is exactly happening in Thailand will most likely to happen. Notice that this also contradict this also engage with the whole gray people stance in coming in closing. People will actually more likely to engage in them because to begin with, people want themselves in order to be fulfill their right and wants to have a better life. Sure, they will try to engage even more, meaning that if we try to meaning that we need to abandon monarch ideology or at least fix them so that people the point of the government. Second point regarding OO, regarding if we fight and we get killed but peaceful, we get better, because we get survivability. We say no. Why? We are already oppressed. Thailand people has been oppressed since the 90s, meaning that at least we fight back, and it is our time to take back the voices of the people, and this is important for that the morality of people that are fighting regarding the whole things. Meaning that we have responded towards 2 points about how this peace will be better under opposition kinds of house. But thirdly, let's move on to the whole case of closing opposition. We said that the human rights violation that is not significant, meaning that the whole international area will not actually see this protest as meaningful. We say no to here. We say no in here because Teja has already told you how this news in the international eyes will more likely to focus when there's human rights violation to begin with in the Thailand. We say that humanitarian act is an important scene. Then most of the world will see this when something go wrong. 2 point about gray area of people that have been engaged beforehand. We're gonna talk to you about these people will no, they will join it and they will join the protest because the discourse that will happen, and this is only exclusive when things get real, and that is when the escalation of violence has begun. People will be care because they want to have betterment in our right. Moving on to the clashes, we believe that in this debate there's 2 clashes. First point is on justification, and secondly on how this will create beneficiary. I'm gonna start with the first one on justification. We say that what has Gov already told you is that there's a human rights violation that is currently happening, and how the monarch actually has been capitalizing the wealth of the nation to begin with. But you need to notice that there's a difference in CG and OG, because in OG side there's lack of stance and there's lack of explanation regarding the status quo of Thailand, that is the military forces. Correct me if I'm wrong, but OG never engaged about the military forces that existed in there. And secondly, they don't explain fully about how Thailand media will actually view it. And also thirdly, there's lack of engagement towards how will they actually do it. That's on OG side. But on closing government, we already told you about how the media will see it and how the people will actually act towards it. Let's take a look at opposition case. We said that they wanted to respect and save the people. So their whole logic is that if the people actually just stop doing this protest, government will hear this. This is a funny stance coming from opposition, because you need to notice that the moment they stop fighting, the moment they are going to be more oppressed, because in the current status quo, government already oppressed us. Notice that how they're talking about progressivity, because but Teja has already explained to you that the government itself does not care about the people, even they don't care to solve the problem of poverty in Thailand to begin with. And secondly, the monarch itself has already exploitative people, how the king has been capitalized worth of $40 billion or something like that, asset that could be used for society, but they did not this. Meaning that to begin with, the monarch system is a corrupt system that don't care about the people, and that's why it is justified for us to do it. Now, let's take a look on the beneficiary about what this. Most of the beneficiary that coming in this case is that how these people will actually gather much more voices of the international world. But before moving on, is there any POI closing? Okay, none. Let's move on. On the side of which one of this will becoming much more beneficiary, Teja has already told you about regarding how this. Teja has already told you about how the whole government case is actually more likely will draw people attention towards the ICE itself, because there's an urgency that needs to be seen. When people are getting killed off the street, when we fight back, that is the moment where people will less likely to actually, no, it's already 6 minutes. That's when the point is actually people drawn to see, because they will feel empathy towards these people that is dying. Notice that how monarch itself has been already violating their right. Also, on terms of this is some sort of minor benefit, but in terms of investment that people that closing opposition has brought regarding that people more likely international ICE don't care. Well, we say that we care because government of Thailand has been opposing with the US, and meaning that yes, the USI will be more drawn on us. So in the whole, Teja has already told you about the beneficiary of if we do this violent, and the way that we are going to do this violent is basically just by doing attack the property of the whole king, the whole monarchy system, the whole monarch property in there. This has been engaged but not been elaborated well by OG. But notice that the moment you try to engage this monarch property, that is the moment where the monarchy will be drawn to us. What is the meaning of this? Anything that's come from opening opposition. I believe that it is important for us to go violent, and therefore we're very proud to become closing opposition. Thank you.
Fail because they never explain to you there is about the contextualization about what happened in the Thailand right now, what kind of source of power that still exists inside of Thailand, and characterization about the society. All things actually dismissive towards to the context that happened in current status quo. This is also directly engaged to closing government that actually dismissive to all points that my first speaker already explained to you about what if the society that's still in gray area that actually not pro within the violence, how then you are going to compromise these kinds of people? All their argumentation is contingent upon the media power without necessarily explain to you why these kinds of media have those kind of incentive to actually portray the demonstrant in a very good way, ladies and gentlemen. Because in the current status quo, even the media is not that benevolent that they need to provide that kind of thing would be access under the start of the house. But let's see, just keep opening government in this debate, because their main case is only try to explain how they want to get attention and make government able to listen to society. Two reasons why they fail in this debate. Firstly, no definition and clear mechanism. What did they mean by escalating the violence? Because there is no such a differentiation within what happened in the current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. People still go to the demonstration, and we are still okay with that kind of thing. But this debate, it must be in the explanation why become more violence, or why escalating your action into become more violence is something that can be justified under their side of the house. But secondly, there is no such a process and such likelihood that why government suddenly listen to you when the source of power inside of the government is very, very significant, ladies and gentlemen. They never engage to the current context of Thailand. That's why OJ fail in this debate, because we see that escalate the action to become more violent, something that is unstrategic, especially in the current context of Thailand, when there are lots of people that still support the current monarchy, military junta that dominate the power. In the context of pandemic, we really need the safety to survive, ladies and gentlemen. That's why all their context is not relevant in this debate. Then just compare our case with opening opposition. We say that opening opposition fails in this debate because their main argumentations actually want to explain why without violence then you might be hurt by society. First respond, the likelihood is not there, ladies and gentlemen. If you only rely into political approach or negotiation approach, it only might not create any kind of changes, ladies and gentlemen, because on our side of the house, the violence might still exist. Demonstration is really acceptable. But the question in here, whether or not the escalation of your kinds of violence, such as you are trying to attack the monarchy, attacking the police, attacking the military institution, might be accessible. In their side of the house, ladies and gentlemen, they explain about the international body want support us, but we are the only team as closing opposition that can prove to you that that more portrayal about how this is not in line with the international principle and how it gives more direct context within the current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Then let's
Before moving on,
government from this debate later, because all their argumentation is only rely into media supports, ladies and gentlemen. First one, I don't think they say that the violence can be justified because it can attract the media attractions, but especially liberal media. First one, this argument is very not relevant within the context of real liberal media, ladies and gentlemen, because they never prove to you why exactly these kinds of liberal media have those kinds of incentives. But understand, escalating the violence, you are not only going to attack the government, but you are going to create massive chaos, ladies and gentlemen. This will create bad portrayal by media even more. This has happened with Hamas, that what my first speaker already explained to you, justify violence into all that action that has been done. It creates the nuances that you don't need help because you have enough power to actually survive in your state, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, but what if in their best scenario, there will be good media portrayal? Ladies and gentlemen, they will trade off lots of things. They will trade off great people in area supports. They will lose more victims and casualties and lose more international support, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why this comparative is really important, because this is the way that we make state as society able to survive at the same way, ladies and gentlemen. Then closing opposition explain to you that this violence is not backlashing with the peaceful. Ladies and gentlemen, notice that they never explain to you what kind of human right violation that is really, really severe and you want to use this kinds of violence as the last resort. But secondly, we consider the current monarchy also is not that very good. But understand in the current status quo, even Thailand not that really engaged in violence, media still can be able to coverage those kinds of things. So there is a deadlock between the media portrayal. So why in our media portrayal will be more likely better, ladies and gentlemen, because the difference in our side of the house, they will show that society needs help. In your side of the house, the society will be seen as super powerful that always try to engage and attack the current government that is only going to create more casualties, and there is no such a response from their side of the house. Let's talk about the point of urgency. Ladies and gentlemen, opening government actually explain why violence is necessary as the last resort. Just dismiss this argument. They are never explained to you how severe the condition, how exactly the matrix when you want to use the last resort of violence. We say that violence can be justified when there is no option at all, ladies and gentlemen. 3 systematic reasons why this is not the urgent things to do. Firstly, understand that the current status quo, the power of Prayut Chan-Ocha still that bigger, ladies and gentlemen. Not only comes by the monarchy or the backup by the king, but the military also still support them. But moreover, several of society still support and pro to these kinds of people, ladies and gentlemen. What is the importance of these things, ladies and gentlemen? Doing riot will escalate the conflict inside of the society. This is something that is very exclusive under our side of the house, because opening opposition only explain to you to the extent why violence is bad. We don't necessarily explain why this kinds of society actually need a change, ladies and gentlemen. And secondly, in our side of the house, we already proved to you at least we are gaining more support by international body and the people in the gray area, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why this argumentation is very important because none of the team that actually able to prove why
before moving on,
is already sick. Why in their side of the house is going to create massive change, ladies and gentlemen. Then they say about distrust by the society. This is not exclusive because in our side of the house, you also might have a distrust by society even more. Escalating violence, meaning that you are aiding more massive attack that is not only targeted to the government and the police and military. How the reaction will be happen under their side of the house? There are 2 scenarios. Firstly, the military and the police even become more brutal in their side of the house. But secondly, in their side of the house, they will eventually harm the innocent civilians. It will make the people underground also will be targeted, ladies and gentlemen. How does it look like? You attacking the police will also direct gentlemen, it might create more victims and casualties. That is why on our side, what is the differentiation? On our side of the house, prolonging demonstration doesn't necessarily means that you are going to escalate the violence, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be more strategic in order to gain attention, in order to gain a better outcome, and in order to protect our civilians. Based on all of those reasons, CO takes this debate. Thank you.
Okay, I thank everyone for those speeches. Please stay in the room. This is not a silent round, so you will be getting an oral adjudication. To the panelists, let's move to Discord, and I'll be waiting in room 9.